Hello, my good friends. How are you today? May God bless you all. I will not introduce anything. You guys watch the video and feel it, then let's evaluate together. The penthouse was a world of glass and starlight, its floor-to-ceiling windows framing Atlanta's skyline like a canvas of dreams. The city lights twinkled below, a sea of gold and silver against the inky night, their glow softening the sleek lines of the modern furniture. The air carried the faint scent of espresso from a high-end machine in the corner, mingling with the subtle musk of Liam Carter's cologne. Amara Brooks stood by the window, her heart pounding, her warm brown skin catching the city's reflection. Her curly hair was loose, spilling over her shoulders, and her emerald green dress clung to her curves, a choice she'd made on a whim for their impromptu dinner. Her eyes, deep and searching, were fixed on Liam, who stood a few feet away, his presence filling the room like a quiet storm. "Marry me, Amara," Liam said, his voice low but steady, his green eyes burning with a conviction that made her breath catch. He stepped closer, his tailored shirt open at the collar, revealing a hint of his strong chest. His dark brown hair was slightly tousled, his smile both tender and daring. "We've known each other for one day, I know. It's crazy. But I've lived long enough to recognize something extraordinary. You're it. You're my home." Amara's hands trembled, her mind screaming that this was insanity. She was the planner, the woman who made pro and con lists for everything, from job offers to new shoes. 24 hours ago, Liam had been a stranger in an elevator, a man with a magic pen and a smile that disarmed her. Now, he was asking her to rewrite her life, to leap into a future she couldn't predict. Her heart, though, was another story. It thrummed with a certainty she couldn't explain, a feeling that this man, his laugh, his touch, his soul, was the missing piece she'd never known she needed. "Liam," she whispered, her voice shaking. "We don't know each other. Not really. This is something out of a movie, not real life." He closed the distance, his hand reaching for hers, his fingers warm and steady. "I know enough," he said, his voice a low rumble that sent a shiver down her spine. "I know you're fierce, loyal, and brave. I know you love jazz because it reminds you of your grandma's kitchen. I know you're scared of letting people in, just like me. And I know that when I'm with you, I feel more alive than I ever have." Her breath hitched, his words unraveling her defenses. She thought of the day they'd shared, coffee turning to lunch, lunch to a walk through Sunset Grove, dinner stretching into a night of confessions. She thought of the kiss they'd shared hours ago, a fiery, desperate moment that had left her dizzy with want. Could she do this? Could she say yes to a man she'd known for one day, a billionaire whose world was galaxies away from hers? "I'm terrified," she admitted, her eyes locked on his, searching for a reason to run. "What if this is a mistake?" "Then we'll make it together," he said, his thumb brushing her knuckles, a touch that grounded her even as it set her aflame. "I'm not asking for perfect, Amara. I'm asking for us." The city lights seemed to pulse, a silent witness to the moment that could change everything. Amara's heart won, her lips parting as she leaned into him, her voice barely a whisper. "Okay, Liam. Yes." How did they get here? From a spilled coffee stain to a proposal that defied all logic. Let's go back to the beginning, to the morning Amara Brooks met Liam Carter and felt her carefully planned life tilt off its axis. This is a story of love, risk, and the courage to follow your heart. Hit that subscribe button now, and let's dive in. The day before Amara Brooks was a mess, and she hated it. Mornings like this were rare for her. She was the woman who had her life mapped out, her calendar color-coded, her goals etched in stone. At 32, she was a rising star in marketing at a tech startup in Atlanta, her sharp mind and relentless drive earning her a reputation as the office's Swiss watch. But today, everything was wrong. Her alarm had failed, her favorite white blouse was ruined by a coffee spill, and she was late for the biggest presentation of her career, a pitch that could secure a multi-million-dollar contract. She rushed into the elevator of a sleek downtown high-rise, her heels clicking on the marble floor, her curly hair pulled into a hasty bun. The coffee stain on her blouse was a glaring embarrassment, and she dabbed at it with a napkin, muttering under her breath, "Of all days, why today?" The elevator was nearly empty, save for a man leaning against the wall, his presence impossible to ignore. He was tall, broad-shouldered, his tailored navy suit accentuating a physique that spoke of discipline. His dark brown hair was neatly styled, his green eyes sharp but kind, crinkling at the corners as he smiled. "Rough morning?" he asked, his voice deep, with a hint of amusement that felt warm, not mocking. Amara glanced up, caught off guard. "You have no idea," she said, attempting to smooth her blouse. "Big pitch in 10 minutes, and I look like I fought a coffee machine and lost." He chuckled, reaching into his briefcase. "Try this," he said, pulling out a sleek pen. "Old family trick." He uncapped it, revealing a clear solution, not ink. "Dab. Don't rub. It won't fix it completely, but it'll help." She hesitated, her instincts wary. Atlanta was full of smooth talkers, and she'd learned to keep her guard up, especially with men who seemed too helpful. But something in his demeanor, the easy confidence, the genuine kindness in his eyes, made her take the pen. "Thanks," she said, dabbing the stain. To her surprise, it faded. Not perfect, but better. "No problem," he said, watching her with a curiosity that made her cheeks warm. "What's the pitch?" She handed the pen back, their fingers brushing, a jolt of electricity passing between them. "Marketing campaign for a new app," she said, forcing her voice to stay steady. "If I nail it, it's a game changer for my company." "You'll nail it," he said, his tone so certain it caught her off guard. "You've got that fire in your eyes." She raised an eyebrow, a smile tugging at her lips. "You always this forward with strangers?" "Only the ones who look like they're about to conquer the world," he replied, his grin disarming. The elevator dinged and she stepped out, turning to face him. "Thanks for the save," she said, her voice softer now. "I'm Amara, by the way." "Liam," he said, his eyes holding hers a moment too long. "Good luck, Amara. You've got this." The doors closed, and Amara felt a strange flutter in her chest, a spark she couldn't quite name. She shook it off, focusing on her pitch. The presentation went better than she'd dared hope. The client loved her ideas, the contract was all but signed, and she left the meeting floating on a high. 3 hours later, she stepped back into the same elevator, her nerves replaced by triumph, and there he was again. Liam looked up from his phone, his face brightening. "How'd it go?" She couldn't believe he remembered. "They loved it," she said, grinning. "Project's a go." "Knew you had it in you," he said, his voice warm, like they were old friends. "We should celebrate. Coffee? My treat." Amara hesitated. She didn't do this, accept invitations from strangers, no matter how charming, but something about Liam felt different, like a melody she wanted to hear again. "Just coffee," she said, her smile teasing. "Don't get any ideas." "Wouldn't dream of it," he said, but his eyes sparkled with mischief. They crossed the street to a cozy cafe, its air thick with the scent of roasted coffee and fresh pastries. The barista knew Liam by name, a detail Amara filed away, but she brushed it off as they settled at a table by the window. "So Liam," she said, sipping her latte, "what's your deal? You a coffee stain expert by trade?" He laughed, a rich sound that warmed her. "Something like that. I work in tech, mostly energy stuff. Boring compared to your world, I bet." "Boring?" She raised an eyebrow. You don't strike me as the boring type." They talked for hours, the conversation flowing like a river. Coffee turned to lunch at a nearby bistro, where they shared stories of their childhoods, Amara's summers in her grandma's kitchen, filled with jazz and gumbo, Liam's quiet evenings tinkering in his dad's garage. Lunch stretched into a walk through Sunset Grove, the park's paths lined with oaks, the air sweet with blooming jasmine. They laughed over shared failures. Amara's disastrous first marketing campaign, Liam's failed attempt at a college band. The world faded, leaving just the two of them, their voices weaving a connection neither could deny. By evening, they were at a rooftop restaurant, the kind with a 3-month wait list, but Liam got them a table with a nod. Amara noticed the staff's deference, the custom watch on his wrist, but she pushed it aside, too caught in his gaze. Over dessert, he asked, "How are you still single?" His directness caught her off guard. She laughed, stirring her coffee. "Who says I am?" "Your eyes," he said, leaning closer, his voice low. "They're searching, just like mine." Her breath caught, his honesty disarming. "My last guy couldn't handle my hustle," she admitted, her voice softer. "Said I was too focused on work to build a life." "His loss," Liam said, his eyes never leaving hers. "Passion's the most beautiful thing about you." The air between them crackled, and Amara felt a pull she couldn't resist. When he suggested they see the view from his penthouse, her instincts flared. Too fast, too risky, but her heart said yes. The penthouse was breathtaking, but it was Liam who held her attention. They talked until dawn, sharing fears, her worry about repeating her parents' broken marriage, his pain from a betrayal that made him guard his heart. As the city lights dimmed, he reached for her, his hand cupping her face. "I've never felt this before," he said, his voice raw. "It's like I've known you forever." "Me neither," she whispered, and then he kissed her, a deep, hungry kiss that set her world on fire. His hands slid to her waist, pulling her close, her body molding to his. The heat of his touch, the taste of his lips, was intoxicating, but they pulled back, breathless, knowing this was more than a moment. The next morning, as the sun rose, Liam handed her coffee, black with a splash of cream, just how she'd mentioned, and said the words that changed everything. "Marry me." That's where our story begins. A woman who plans every step, swept away by a man who sees her soul. But can a love this fast survive the real world? If that proposal in the penthouse made your heart race, hit that subscribe button and join us for Amara and Liam's wild ride. Would you say yes to a stranger after one day, or run for the hills? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and let's keep this story going. The Atlanta sun dipped low, painting Sunset Grove in hues of gold and amber. The park was alive with the hum of summer, kids laughing on a playground, the distant strum of a busker's guitar, and the sweet scent of jasmine weaving through the warm air. Amara Brooks walked along a winding path, her emerald green dress swaying with each step, her curly hair catching the fading light. Beside her, Liam Carter matched her pace, his navy shirt unbuttoned at the collar, his green eyes bright with a mix of mischief and warmth. His presence was magnetic, a quiet confidence that made the world feel smaller, like it was just the two of them. Hours ago, they'd been strangers in an elevator, Amara frazzled by a coffee stain, Liam offering a pen and a smile that disarmed her. Now, after a triumphant presentation and a coffee date that stretched into lunch, they were here, strolling through a park, talking like they'd known each other forever. Amara couldn't explain it, this pull, this ease. She was the planner, the woman who mapped out every move, but with Liam, she was letting go, and it felt exhilarating. "So, Mr. Tech Guy," she said, nudging his arm, her tone teasing. You really spend your days tinkering with solar panels, or is that just a line to impress girls? Liam laughed, a rich sound that warmed her. No lines, I swear. I'm a nerd at heart. Give me a circuit board and I'm happy. But I'm curious about you. How does Southside Girl end up running marketing for a startup? She smiled, kicking a pebble on the path. Grit and a lot of coffee. Grew up listening to my grandma's jazz records, dreaming bigger than our little apartment. Got a scholarship, worked my tail off, and here I am. Still proving I belong, though. You don't have to prove anything, he said, his voice low, serious. You're the real deal, Amara. I saw it in that elevator. You've got fire. Her cheeks warmed, his words landing deeper than she expected. She glanced at him, catching the way his eyes lingered, a spark that made her pulse quicken. Careful, Liam, she teased, brushing her hair back. You keep talking like that. I might think you're trouble. Only the good kind, he replied, his grin wicked but warm, and the air between them crackled. They'd started at a cafe, where coffee turned into sandwiches, then moved to a bistro for lunch, sharing stories of childhood mishaps and career flops. Now, in Sunset Grove, the conversation deepened. Amara told him about her parents' messy divorce, how it made her wary of love. Liam opened up about a college girlfriend who'd used him for his startup dreams, leaving him guarded. Each confession felt like a bridge, drawing them closer, their laughter and silences equally intimate. As the sun sank, Liam stopped by a fountain, its water glinting under the park's string lights. Dance with me, he said, holding out his hand, his tone half playful, half serious. Here? Amara raised an eyebrow, glancing at the families nearby. There's no music. We don't need it, he said, stepping closer, his hand still extended. Come on, Amara. Live a little. She hesitated, her practical side whispering caution, but her heart won. She took his hand, his fingers warm and steady, and let him pull her close. They swayed to an imaginary rhythm, his hand resting on her waist, the heat of his touch seeping through her dress. Her breath caught as he leaned in, his breath grazing her ear, the scent of his cologne, sandalwood and citrus, filling her senses. Their faces were inches apart, his eyes locked on hers, and for a moment she thought he'd kiss her. But a kid's shout broke the spell, and they stepped back, laughing, the tension lingering like a promise. You're dangerous, she said, her voice shaky but playful, trying to steady her racing heart. You have no idea, he replied, his smile soft but intense, and Amara felt a pull she couldn't ignore. Dinner was Liam's idea, a rooftop restaurant with a view of Atlanta's skyline. The place was exclusive, the kind Amara had only read about, with linen tablecloths, candlelight, and a jazz trio playing in the corner. The staff greeted Liam by name, a detail that raised her eyebrow, but she let it slide, too caught in the moment. The air was warm, scented with rosemary from their plates, grilled salmon for her, steak for him, and the wine was smooth, loosening their tongues. All right, spill, Amara said, leaning forward, her eyes sparkling. What's the worst date you've ever been on? Liam grinned, swirling his glass. Easy. Girl spent the whole night texting her ex, then asked me to invest in her fashion line. You? Guy took me to a buffet and made me split the bill, she said, laughing. Then he tried to pitch me on his crypto scam. Amateurs, Liam said, shaking his head. They didn't deserve you. The conversation turned personal again, the jazz weaving around them like a cocoon. Amara shared her fear of failing her community, the pressure of being a black woman in a white corporate world. Liam listened, his eyes never leaving hers, and told her about his own loneliness, the way success had isolated him. People see the money, not the man, he said, his voice quiet. But you see me. Her heart thudded, his words a key to a lock she hadn't known was there. "You're not what I expected," she admitted, her voice soft. "I don't know what this is, Liam, but it's big." "Then let's see where it goes," he said, his hand brushing hers on the table, a touch that sent sparks through her. "No pressure, just us." She nodded, her throat tight, and for the first time, she let herself believe in the possibility of something real. The night didn't end there. Liam suggested his penthouse for the view, and Amara, against her better judgment, said yes. The space was stunning. Glass walls, minimalist furniture, a skyline that took her breath away. But it was Liam who held her attention, his ease and intensity a potent mix. They sat on a leather couch, coffee mugs in hand, talking as the city slept below. Amara told him about her volunteer work at New Horizons, a community center where she taught marketing to teens. Liam shared his dream of making clean energy accessible, not just profitable. Their vulnerabilities spilled out, her fear of repeating her parents' mistakes, his pain from a betrayal that made him doubt love. As dawn approached, the air grew heavy with unspoken desire. Liam set his mug down, his eyes locked on hers. "I've never connected with someone like this," he said, his voice raw. "It's like you're a piece of me I didn't know I was missing." "Me neither," Amara whispered, her heart racing. "It's scary, Liam." "Scary's good," he said, leaning closer, his hand cupping her face. "It means it's real." He kissed her then, a deep, hungry kiss that set her world ablaze. His lips were warm, his hands sliding to her waist, pulling her close. She melted into him, her fingers tangling in his hair, the heat of his body igniting hers. The kiss was a confession, a promise, and when they pulled back, breathless, their foreheads touching, Amara knew she was in deep. "We should slow down," she said, her voice shaky, though her body screamed otherwise. "Maybe," he said, his thumb brushing her cheek, his eyes dark with want. "But I don't want to." They didn't cross the line, not fully, but the night stretched on, their conversation a dance of words and silences. When the sun rose, painting the penthouse in soft pinks, Liam handed her coffee, black with a splash of cream, just how she liked it, and said the words that would change everything. "Marry me." The proposal wasn't the end of the day's surprises, but it was the moment that crystallized their connection. Amara's world was shifting, and she wasn't sure if she was falling or flying. But there were shadows, Nia's warnings, the hints of Liam's wealth, the whispers of doubt in her mind. She called Nia from the penthouse bathroom, her voice low. "He asked me to marry him, Nia, after one day." "Girl, have you lost your mind?" Nia's voice was sharp, her concern palpable. "You don't know this guy, Mara. He could be anyone." "I know," Amara said, pacing the marble floor, her reflection staring back from a mirror. "But it feels right, like I've known him forever." "That's called hormones," Nia said, softening but firm. "Promise me you'll think before you leap," Amara promised, but her heart was already leaning toward yes. Back in the living room, Liam watched her, his eyes hopeful but patient. She thought of her life, careful, controlled, safe, and the fire Liam had sparked. Could she take this risk, this leap into the unknown? The penthouse was bathed in the soft glow of morning, Atlanta's skyline shimmering through the floor-to-ceiling windows like a promise of new beginnings. The air carried the rich scent of coffee, mingling with the faint citrus of Liam Carter's cologne, a reminder of the night before. Amara Brooks stood by the window, her emerald green dress replaced by one of Liam's oversized button-down shirts, the sleeves rolled up, her curly hair loose and slightly mussed from their sleepless night. Her warm brown skin caught the dawn's light, her eyes a mix of wonder and worry as she held a steaming mug, her heart still reeling from Liam's proposal. "Marry me, Amara," he'd said, his green eyes fierce with conviction, his hand warm against hers. It was insane. 24 hours ago, they'd been strangers in an elevator, and now he was asking her to rewrite her life. Amara was the planner, the woman who calculated every risk, but Liam had ignited something in her, a fire, a certainty that defied logic. She'd said yes, her voice trembling, but now, in the quiet of morning, doubt crept in like a thief. Liam sat on the leather couch, his dark brown hair tousled, his white t-shirt clinging to his broad shoulders. He watched her with a tenderness that made her chest ache, but also a patience that gave her space to think. "You okay?" he asked, his voice low, a hint of worry breaking through his usual confidence. Amara turned, forcing a smile. "Just processing," she said, sipping her coffee, black with a splash of cream, exactly how she liked it, a detail he'd remembered without asking. "This is a lot, Liam. One day, and we're talking marriage? I'm trying to wrap my head around it." He stood, crossing to her, his presence steady but not overbearing. "I know it's fast," he said, stopping a foot away, his eyes searching hers. "But I meant every word, Amara. I've never felt this before. Not with anyone. If you need time, I'll wait." His sincerity was disarming, but it didn't quiet the storm in her mind. She thought of her parents' divorce, the years of arguments that taught her love was a gamble. She thought of her career, the marketing empire she was building, and the community at New Horizons, where she poured her heart into teaching teens. Could she risk all that for a man she barely knew, no matter how right he felt? Before she could answer, her phone buzzed on the coffee table, a sharp intrusion. She ignored it, but Liam glanced at the screen, his brow furrowing. "It's Nia," he said, handing it to her. "She's called 3 times. Amara sighed, knowing her best friend's reaction wouldn't be gentle. Nia Thompson, a journalist with a razor-sharp wit and a protective streak, had already warned her about moving too fast with Liam. Amara stepped into the penthouse's sleek bathroom, the marble cool under her bare feet, and answered. "Nia, I'm fine, I promise." "Fine?" Nia's voice was a mix of worry and exasperation, loud enough to echo off the tiles. "Mara, you're in some guy's penthouse after one day and he's talking marriage? Girl, have you lost your entire mind?" Amara leaned against the sink, her reflection staring back from a mirror, her eyes wide with the weight of her choice. "I know how it sounds," she said, keeping her voice low. "But Nia, it's different with him. It's like I've known him forever." "That's called a crush, not a soulmate," Nia snapped, softening but firm. "You don't even know who he is, Mara. What's his last name? His job? You're smarter than this." "He's Liam," Amara said, hesitating. "He works in tech, energy stuff. I don't have all the details, but—" "Exactly," Nia cut in. "You're jumping off a cliff without a parachute. Promise me you'll slow down, at least talk to him before you do anything crazy." Amara promised, her stomach knotting as she hung up. Nia's words echoed her own fears. Too fast, too risky. She stepped back into the living room, where Liam was pouring more coffee, his movements easy but his eyes watchful. "Everything okay?" he asked, handing her the mug. "Yeah," she lied, forcing a smile. "Nia's just being Nia, protective." "She's got a point," Liam said, his tone light but honest. "This is a lot to take in. If you're having second thoughts, Amara, just say it. I'll understand." His openness made her heart ache, but it also sharpened her doubts. Who was he really? She knew his laugh, his dreams, the way his touch set her on fire. But the details, his life, his world, were still a mystery. Before she could ask, her phone buzzed again, this time with a text from Sophie Miller, her co-worker at the startup. The message was a link to a news article, followed by a single emoji. Amara opened it, her breath catching as she read the headline, "Tech billionaire Liam Carter spotted with mystery woman in Atlanta." The article was short but damning, describing Liam as the CEO of Solaris Energy, a renewable energy empire worth billions. It mentioned his low-profile lifestyle, his custom watches, and a grainy photo of them leaving the rooftop restaurant last night, Amara's face half-hidden but unmistakable. The words billionaire and mystery woman burned into her mind, each one a crack in the trust she'd started to build. "Liam," she said, her voice sharp, holding up the phone. "What is this?" He glanced at the screen, his jaw tightening, and for the first time, she saw a flicker of unease in his eyes. "Amara, I was going to tell you." "Tell me what?" she cut in, stepping back, her mug clattering on the table. "That you're not just some tech guy, but a billionaire? That you've been wining and dining me in places I couldn't dream of, all while letting me think you're normal?" The penthouse felt smaller, the city lights mocking her from beyond the glass. Liam ran a hand through his hair, his voice urgent. "I didn't lie to you, Amara. I work in tech. I told you that. I didn't want the money to change how you saw me. People get weird when they know. Trust me, I've lived it." "Change how I saw you?" Her laugh was bitter, her eyes stinging. "You think I'm that shallow? You think I'd care about your bank account? Liam, I opened up to you, told you things I don't tell anyone, and you couldn't even tell me your last name." He stepped closer, his hands outstretched, but she held up a hand, stopping him. "It's not about the money," she said, her voice trembling. "It's about trust. You let me believe we were equals, but you were holding all the cards. How am I supposed to marry someone who hides who they are?" The words hung between them, heavy and raw. Liam's face fell, his eyes dark with regret. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice low. "I should have told you. I was scared, Amara. Scared you'd look at me like everyone else does, like a paycheck or a prize. But you're right. I messed up. Let me fix it." She shook her head, her throat tight. "I need time, Liam. It's too much." He nodded, his shoulders sagging, but he didn't push. "Take all the time you need," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'll be here." Amara grabbed her bag, her movements jerky, and headed for the door. The penthouse, once a haven, felt like a stage where she'd played a part she didn't understand. As the elevator doors closed, she leaned against the wall, her eyes burning with unshed tears, Nia's warnings echoing in her mind. Outside, Atlanta was waking up, the streets buzzing with morning traffic, the air thick with the scent of exhaust and blooming magnolias. Amara walked to her car, her phone buzzing with another call from Nia. She answered, her voice shaky. "You were right, Nia. He's Liam Carter, some billionaire. I didn't even know." "I saw the article," Nia said, her tone softer now, laced with concern. "I'm sorry, Mara. You okay?" "No," Amara admitted, sliding into her driver's seat. "I said yes to his proposal, Nia. I was ready to marry him, and now I don't know who he is." "Come to my place," Nia said. "We'll figure this out. You don't have to decide anything today." Amara nodded, though Nia couldn't see, and hung up. She thought of Liam's kiss, the way his lips had claimed hers, the heat of his hands pulling her close. She thought of his confession, his fear of being seen as a paycheck. Part of her wanted to believe him, to trust the man who danced with her in Sunset Grove, but the other part, the part that had watched her parents' trust crumble, couldn't let go of the lie. At New Horizons, where she volunteered, the community center was quiet, its concrete walls lined with posters for upcoming jazz nights. Amara stopped by to check in, needing the comfort of her roots. Evelyn, her mother, was there, helping with a cooking class, her gray hair pulled back, her eyes sharp despite her frail health. "You look like you've been through a storm, baby," Evelyn said, setting down a bowl of gumbo. "What's wrong?" Amara hesitated, then spilled the story, the elevator, the date, the proposal, the article. Evelyn listened, her expression unreadable. "Sounds like a man who's scared to lose you," she said finally. "But love needs truth, Mara. You can't build a house on sand." "I know," Amara said, her voice breaking. "But it felt so real, Mama. What if I'm throwing it away?" "Then you'll know you did it for the right reasons," Evelyn said, squeezing her hand. "Give it time. Your heart's smarter than you think." Liam wasn't faring much better. He stood in his penthouse, the city sprawling below, feeling emptier than ever. He called Calvin Reed, his assistant and confidant, who answered with his usual dry humor. "Let me guess, boss. You scared her off with that proposal stunt?" "Worse," Liam said, pacing. "She found out who I am from a news article. I didn't tell her, Cal. I thought it'd ruin everything." Calvin sighed. "You're a genius with solar panels, but a fool with women. If you love her, tell her the truth, all of it. No more secrets." Liam nodded, but the weight of Amara's hurt lingered. He'd meant to protect their connection, but he'd only proven he didn't trust her. He thought of her laugh, the way her eyes lit up when she talked about New Horizons, the fire in her kiss. He couldn't lose her. Not like this. Back at her apartment, Amara sat on her couch, the article open on her phone. The photo of them leaving the restaurant was grainy, but it captured her smile, the way Liam's hand rested on her back. She thought of Sophie, her co-worker, who'd sent the link with that smug emoji and the whispers that would follow at work. She thought of Darius, her protective brother, who'd lose it when he heard. But most of all, she thought of Liam, the man who'd seen her, really seen her, until he hadn't. The Savannah beach stretched out like a canvas of gold and blue, the late afternoon sun casting a warm glow over the sand. Waves lapped gently at the shore, their rhythmic hum blending with the distant cry of gulls, the air thick with the briny scent of the sea. A small wooden gazebo stood at the edge of the dunes, draped in white linen and adorned with wildflowers, a simple stage for a moment that defied reason. Amara Brooks stood within it, her heart pounding, her warm brown skin radiant in a cream-colored dress that hugged her curves, its hem fluttering in the breeze. Her curly hair was loose, framing her face, her eyes a mix of joy and nerves as she faced Liam Carter. Liam looked like he'd stepped out of a dream, his white linen shirt open at the collar, his dark brown hair tousled by the wind, his green eyes locked on Amara with a love that made her breath catch. 24 hours ago, they'd been strangers. Now, they were about to become husband and wife. The justice of the peace, a kind-eyed woman Liam had somehow arranged on short notice, stood ready, her voice steady as she began the ceremony. Nia Thompson, Amara's best friend, was the only guest, her braids pulled back, her expression a mix of skepticism and reluctant awe. Amara's hands trembled as she held Liam's, his fingers warm and steady, grounding her. She'd said yes to his proposal in the penthouse that morning, after a night of confessions and a kiss that set her world ablaze. The revelation of his billionaire status had shaken her, his secrecy a wound, but his apology, raw, honest, had tipped the scales. She'd chosen her heart over her head, a leap that felt both terrifying and right, but as the justice spoke, doubt lingered. a whisper asking if she'd truly known what she was signing up for. "Do you, Liam, take Amara to be your wife?" the justice asked, her voice carrying over the waves. "I do," Liam said, his voice firm but thick with emotion. "Amara, I promise to respect your fire, to learn from you, to walk beside you, not ahead. This may seem sudden to the world, but my soul knows yours, and I vow to prove every day that this was the right choice." Amara's eyes stung, his words weaving a future she wanted to believe in. "Do you, Amara, take Liam to be your husband?" the justice asked. She hesitated, just for a heartbeat, her mind flashing to Nia's warnings, her mother's caution, the article that had exposed Liam's wealth. But then she looked into his eyes, saw the man who'd danced with her in Sunset Grove, who'd listened to her fears, and her heart answered. "I do," she said, her voice steady. "Liam, I'm scared, but I choose you. I promise to be honest, to challenge you, to build a life where we both shine." They exchanged simple platinum bands, their fingers brushing, a spark that echoed their first touch in the elevator. When the justice pronounced them married, Liam cupped her face and kissed her, a tender, searing kiss that held all the promise of their vows. Amara melted into him, her hands on his chest, the world fading until it was just them, the sea, and the sunset. Nia clapped, wiping her eyes, her voice breaking the moment. "Y'all are crazy, but dang, that was beautiful. I came expecting a disaster, but this, it's real." Amara laughed, pulling Nia into a hug, but as they walked back to the car, a shadow loomed. Her phone buzzed with a notification, a news alert, one she'd hoped to avoid. The article was worse than the first. Billionaire Liam Carter weds unknown woman in secret ceremony. It called her a mystery woman with no notable background, hinting she'd snagged a billionaire, the words dripping with judgment. The photos showed them leaving the restaurant 2 nights ago, Amara's smile now a target for public scrutiny. Her stomach churned, the joy of the wedding dimming. This was her new reality, a world that would judge her, reduce her to a stereotype. And Liam, the man she'd just married, was at the center of it. The day before, Amara had spent the morning wrestling with Liam's proposal, the weight of his secret billionaire status pressing on her. She'd left his penthouse after their confrontation, needing space to think, but her heart kept pulling her back. She'd driven to New Horizons, the community center where she volunteered, seeking comfort in its familiar chaos. The concrete walls were lined with posters for jazz nights, the air thick with the scent of gumbo from a cooking class. Evelyn, her mother, was there, her gray hair pulled back, her eyes sharp as she stirred a pot. "You look like you're carrying the world, baby," Evelyn said, setting down her spoon. "What's going on?" Amara spilled everything, the elevator, the date, the proposal, the article. Evelyn listened, her expression softening. "Sounds like a man who's scared to lose you," she said. "But love needs truth. Can you trust him?" "I want to," Amara admitted, her voice breaking. "It's just so fast, Mama. What if I'm wrong?" "Then you'll learn," Evelyn said, squeezing her hand. "But your heart's strong, Mara. Listen to it." Amara left the center with no answers, but Nia's call pushed her to decide. "Mara, if you're doing this, I'm not letting you jump alone," Nia said, her tone firm but warm. "But you better be sure." She wasn't sure, not fully, but when she returned to Liam's penthouse, his apology was waiting. "I should have told you everything," he said, his eyes raw with regret. "I'm Liam Carter, CEO of Solaris Energy. I've got money, more than I know what to do with, but it's not who I am. I hid it because I wanted you to see me, not my bank account. I'm sorry, Amara. I'll do better." His honesty broke through her defenses, and when he asked again, "Will you marry me?" she said yes, her heart overriding her doubts. They spent the afternoon planning, Liam arranging a justice of the peace, Amara finding a dress in a boutique, a cream-colored gown that felt like a dream. Naya agreed to come, grumbling but loyal, and by evening they were on their way to Savannah, the promise of vows lighting their path. The wedding was perfect, a moment of pure connection, but the article shattered the afterglow. Back at their hotel, a small boutique overlooking the ocean, Amara sat on the balcony, the sea breeze cool against her skin. The room was warm, scented with lavender from the candles Liam had lit, but her mood was heavy. She scrolled through the article again, the comments worse than the text, speculation about her motives, jabs at her unknown status, veiled remarks about her race. Liam joined her, his presence a comfort and a complication. "You saw it," he said, his voice quiet, sitting beside her. "I'm sorry, Amara. I should have warned you this could happen." "Warned me?" She turned, her eyes flashing, her voice sharp. "Liam, they're calling me a gold digger. They're saying I trapped you, like I'm some nobody who got lucky. Do you know what that feels like?" He reached for her hand, but she pulled back, her hurt too raw. "I know it's awful," he said, his voice steady but pained. "But they don't know you. They don't know us. You're Amara Brooks, the woman who's building an empire, who lights up every room. I'll deal with the press, I promise." "Deal with it?" Her laugh was bitter, her eyes glistening. "You can't fix this, Liam. This is what happens when you marry a billionaire after one day. People talk, and I'm the one they're tearing apart." He flinched, her words cutting deep. "I love you," he said, his voice breaking. "I didn't think. I should have thought about what this would do to you. Tell me how to make it right." She stood, wrapping her arms around herself, the ocean's hum a distant comfort. "I don't know," she said, her voice softer now, heavy with doubt. "I love you too, Liam. But it's bigger than us. I need to figure out if I can handle it." He nodded, his jaw tight, giving her space. "I'll be here," he said, his voice barely audible. "No matter what." Amara stepped inside, the candles flickering, her wedding band heavy on her finger. She thought of Nia's reluctant tears at the ceremony, Evelyn's cautious wisdom, and the life she'd left behind in Atlanta. The article was just the beginning. She'd face more scrutiny, more judgment, and she wasn't sure if love, even one this fierce, was enough to carry her through. Back in Atlanta, the fallout was already spreading. Sophie Miller, Amara's co-worker, had seen the article and wasted no time. At the startup, she whispered to colleagues, her tone smug. "Guess Amara's trading pitches for penthouses now," she said, her words reaching Amara through a text from a friend. The betrayal stung, a reminder of the professional world she'd fought to conquer, now tainted by gossip. Darius, Amara's brother, called, his voice tight with worry. "Mara, what's this about you marrying some rich guy? You didn't even tell me. Who is he?" "I'll explain soon," she said, her throat tight. "It's complicated, Darius. Just trust me." "Trust you?" he said, his tone sharp. "You're my sister. I need to know you're not making a mistake." Amara hung up, her heart heavy. She thought of New Horizons, where the kids looked up to her and wondered what they'd think. She thought of Liam, the man who'd vowed to walk beside her, now a symbol of a world she didn't fully understand. The wedding had been a dream, but the real world was waking her up, and she wasn't sure if she was ready for the fight. Liam wasn't untouched by the storm. He sat in the hotel room, the ocean visible through the window, and called Calvin Reed, his assistant. "It's a mess, Cal," he said, his voice low. "The press is tearing into her, and it's my fault. I didn't prepare her for this." "You didn't prepare yourself either," Calvin said, his tone blunt but kind. "You fell hard, boss, and you jumped. Now you gotta show her you're worth the leap. Start with the truth. No more surprises. Liam nodded, his resolve hardening. He loved Amara more than he'd thought possible, and he'd do whatever it took to prove it. But the article was a warning. Their love wasn't just theirs anymore. It was public, and the world wasn't kind. The Atlanta skyline glittered under a heavy autumn dusk, its lights a stark contrast to the storm brewing in Amara Brooks's heart. She sat in her small office at the tech startup, the hum of fluorescent lights and the faint scent of burnt coffee filling the air. Her desk was cluttered with campaign drafts, but her eyes were fixed on her phone, scrolling through the latest comments on the article that had turned her life upside down. Billionaire Liam Carter weds unknown woman in secret ceremony. The words gold digger, opportunist, and worse, veiled jabs at her race stung like needles, each one chipping away at the joy of her wedding day. Amara's cream-colored dress was gone, replaced by a sharp blazer and jeans, her curly hair pulled into a neat bun, a shield against the world's judgment. At 32, she'd fought for her place in this corporate world, a black woman from Atlanta's South Side proving her worth with every pitch. But now, her marriage to Liam Carter, sealed after just 24 hours, had made her a target. The article wasn't just gossip. It was a public dissection of her identity, her motives, her existence. And Liam, the man she'd vowed to love, was at the center of it, his billionaire status, a lens that distorted everything. Her phone buzzed with a text from Sophie Miller, her co-worker, whose smug emoji had first alerted her to the news. "Everyone's talking about your big catch, Amara. Hope you're ready for the spotlight." The words were laced with venom, and Amara's jaw tightened. Sophie had always been competitive, her ambition cloaked in fake smiles, but this was different. Personal, cruel. Amara deleted the message, but the damage was done. The office buzzed with whispers, colleagues glancing her way, their curiosity a weight she couldn't shake. She thought of Liam, now her husband, and the memory of their beachside vows felt like a dream. His green eyes, his promise to walk beside her, had been so real. But the article had exposed a truth they hadn't faced. Their worlds were galaxies apart. She was a woman of grit and community, rooted in new horizons and her family's legacy. He was a billionaire, moving through a world of privilege she couldn't fully grasp. Could love, even one this fierce, bridge that gap? Liam was struggling too. He sat in his penthouse office at Solaris Energy, the glass walls reflecting the city's glow, the air sharp with the scent of leather and polished wood. His dark brown hair was mussed, his tie loosened, his green eyes shadowed with worry. The article had blindsided him, but Amara's pain, her hurt voice on the hotel balcony, cut deeper than any headline. He'd wanted to protect her, to shield their love from the world's glare, but his secrecy had only made things worse. Now the press was circling, and he felt powerless to stop it. He called Calvin Reed, his assistant and friend, who answered with his usual bluntness. "You look like you haven't slept, boss. Let me guess, the press is eating you alive." "It's eating her alive," Liam said, pacing, his voice tight. "They're tearing into Amara, Cal, calling her things I can't even repeat. She's doubting everything. Us, the marriage, me. I don't know how to fix this." "Start by listening," Calvin said, his tone firm but kind. "You're a white guy with $1 billion. Her world's different. Always has been. If you love her, you gotta see what she's carrying, not just try to make it go away." Liam nodded, Calvin's words hitting hard. He thought of Amara's strength, the way she'd faced the world with fire, and his failure to anticipate how his life would impact hers. He loved her, more than he'd ever thought possible, but love wasn't enough if he couldn't understand her reality. The breaking point came that evening, when Amara returned to the penthouse after a brutal day. The startup had been a minefield. Sophie's barbed comments, colleagues' sidelong glances, and a tense meeting where her ideas were questioned more than usual. She'd held her head high, but the weight was crushing. The penthouse, once a haven, felt foreign, its sleek surfaces and city views a reminder of Liam's world, not hers. Liam was waiting, his shirt untucked, a glass of wine in hand as an offering. "Hey," he said, his voice soft, stepping toward her. "Rough day?" She set her bag down, her shoulders stiff, avoiding his gaze. "You could say that," she said, her voice flat. "Sophie's spreading rumors at work, calling me a gold digger. My colleagues are acting like I'm a different person. And the internet. Liam, they're saying things about me I can't even repeat." His face fell, his hand reaching for hers, but she stepped back, her hurt too raw. "I'm so sorry," he said, his voice urgent. "I've got my team on it, press releases, legal action if we need it. We'll shut this down, Amara." "Shut it down?" Her voice rose, sharp and trembling, her eyes blazing. "You think a press release fixes this? Liam, these people don't care about your money or your lawyers. They see a black woman marrying a white billionaire, and they've already written the story. I'm the opportunist, the one who got lucky. Do you know what that feels like?" He flinched, his hands dropping to his sides. "I know it's awful," he said, his voice steady but strained. "But they're wrong, Amara. You're not that person. You're brilliant, strong, the woman I love. Let me help you through this." "Help me?" She laughed, a bitter sound that echoed off the glass walls. "You don't get it, do you? You move through the world like it's yours, Liam. You don't know what it's like to be judged before you speak, to have to prove you're not a stereotype every single day. I've been fighting that my whole life, and now, because of us, it's worse." His jaw tightened, hurt flashing in his eyes. "I'm trying, Amara," he said, his voice breaking. "I know I don't understand everything you're going through, but I want to. I love you. Doesn't that count for something?" "Love isn't enough if you can't see me," she said, her voice cracking, tears spilling over. "I married you because I believed in us, but this world, your world, is tearing me apart. I need you to understand what I'm carrying, not just try to fix it with money." The penthouse was silent, the city lights a cold backdrop to their pain. Liam stepped closer, his hand hovering near her arm, but she shook her head, grabbing her bag. "I need space," she said, her voice barely audible. "I'm going to Nia's." "Amara, please," he said, his voice raw, but she was already at the door, her heart breaking with every step. The elevator ride down was a blur. The city's hum, a distant roar as she drove to Nia's apartment, her wedding band heavy on her finger. Nia's place was a sanctuary, its cozy living room filled with the scent of vanilla candles and the faint twang of a jazz playlist. Nia, her braids loose, handed Amara a mug of tea, her eyes sharp with concern. "Girl, you look like you've been through it," she said, settling on the couch. "What happened?" Amara spilled everything, the article, Sophie's betrayal, the fight with Liam. "I love him, Nia," she said, her voice breaking. "But I don't know if I can do this. The world's watching, judging, and he doesn't get how it feels to be me in this." Nia sighed, her tone softer now. "He's a rich white guy, Mara. He's got blind spots the size of Georgia. But he loves you. I saw it at that wedding. Question is, can he learn? And do you want to wait for him to figure it out?" "I don't know," Amara admitted, curling up on the couch, her eyes burning. "I thought we were a team, but now it feels like I'm fighting alone." Nia squeezed her hand, her voice firm. "You're not alone. You've got me, your mama, Darius. But you gotta decide what you can carry, Mara. Love's work, especially when the world's against you." Amara nodded, but her heart was torn. She thought of Liam's kiss on the beach, the way his hands had held her like she was precious. She thought of New Horizons, where the kids looked up to her and wondered if she was betraying them by stepping into his world. The fight had exposed a truth. Love was a start, but it needed understanding, and she wasn't sure if Liam could bridge that gap. At the penthouse, Liam was unraveling. He stood by the window, the city sprawling below, feeling more alone than ever. He called Calvin again, his voice hollow. "She's gone, Cal. I tried to fix it, but I made it worse. She thinks I don't see her." "You don't," Calvin said, his tone blunt. "Not fully. You're trying, but you've got to do more than throw money at this. Go to her world, Liam. Show up at that community center she loves. Learn what it means to be her, not just her husband." Liam nodded, his resolve hardening. He loved Amara, and he'd made mistakes, hiding his wealth, underestimating the world's cruelty. But he wasn't giving up. He thought of her fire, her strength, and knew he had to prove he could stand beside her, not just in love, but in her reality. Amara spent the night at Nia's, the jazz playlist a faint comfort. She thought of Evelyn's words, "Your heart's strong," and Darius's protective call, demanding to meet Liam. She thought of Sophie, whose rumors were spreading, threatening her career. But most of all, she thought of Liam, the man who'd vowed to learn from her, now separated by a divide she didn't know how to cross. The New Horizons Community Center pulsed with life, its concrete walls alive with the glow of fairy lights and the soulful wail of a saxophone. The air was thick with the scent of gumbo and cornbread, the jazz night fundraiser drawing a crowd of neighbors, teens, and volunteers. Amara Brooks stood at the heart of it, her red dress hugging her curves, her curly hair loose and catching the light. Her warm brown eyes sparkled with purpose as she directed volunteers, her laughter mingling with the music, but a shadow lingered in her heart. It had been a week since she'd left Liam Carter's penthouse, seeking space at Nia's apartment after their fight over privilege and the public's cruel scrutiny. Their marriage, born in a day, was hanging by a thread, and Amara wasn't sure if love could mend it. Across the room, Liam stood by the buffet table, his presence both familiar and jarring. His dark brown hair was slightly mussed, his navy shirt rolled up at the sleeves, his green eyes scanning the crowd until they found her. He'd shown up unannounced, a quiet figure in her world, and Amara's breath caught at the sight of him. He wasn't the billionaire CEO tonight, just Liam, the man who'd danced with her in Sunset Grove, who'd kissed her under a Savannah sunset. But the memory of their argument, his failure to grasp her reality as a black woman in his privileged world, kept her guarded. The center was a haven, a place where Amara's roots ran deep. She'd grown up in Atlanta's South Side, where community meant everything, and New Horizons was her way of giving back, teaching marketing to teens who dreamed big. Tonight, the fundraiser was for new computers, a cause she'd poured her heart into. Seeing Liam here, in her space, stirred a mix of hope and fear. Was he here to fight for her, or to smooth things over with charm? As the jazz trio launched into Ain't No Sunshine, Amara felt a tap on her shoulder. It was Jamal, one of her students, his shy grin wide. "Ms. Amara, you gotta see this," he said, handing her a flyer. "New program starting next month, coding and marketing, full scholarships. They're calling it the Brooks Initiative, ain't that your name?" Amara's brow furrowed as she read the flyer, her heart skipping. The program was funded by Solaris Energy, Liam's company, and designed to empower teens from underserved communities. It wasn't just money, it was a vision, one that echoed her dreams for New Horizons, with her name at its heart. She looked up, her eyes finding Liam across the room. He met her gaze, his expression soft but steady, no trace of expectation. "Did you do this?" she asked, crossing to him, the flyer trembling in her hand. He nodded, his voice low. "I wanted to support what matters to you," he said. "Not to fix things, Amara, but to show I'm listening. I've been coming to your events, talking to your kids, learning what this place means. I'm trying to see your world, not just mine." Her throat tightened, his words unraveling her defenses. This wasn't a grand gesture or a check to buy her forgiveness. It was a step into her reality, a sign he was learning. She thought of their fight, the way she'd felt unseen, and saw now that he was trying, not just with words, but with actions. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked, her voice soft, searching. "Because it's not about me," he said, his eyes never leaving hers. "It's about you, your community, your dreams. I love you, Amara, and I'm here to learn, even if I mess up." The music swelled, the crowd fading as Amara's heart opened. She reached for his hand, her fingers brushing his, a spark that echoed their first touch. "Dance with me," she said, her voice barely audible, a peace offering. He took her hand, leading her to the center of the room, the fairy lights casting a golden glow. They swayed to the music, his hand on her waist, her body close to his, the heat of his touch reigniting the fire she'd tried to douse. His breath grazed her ear, the scent of his cologne, sandalwood and citrus, filling her senses. Their eyes locked, and for the first time in a week, she felt seen, not just as his wife, but as Amara Brooks, the woman who carried her community's hopes. "I'm still scared," she whispered, her forehead resting against his. "This world, your world, it's hard for me." "I know," he said, his voice raw, his hand tightening on hers. "And I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. I'm learning, Amara, and I'll keep learning. For you, for us. We're a team, right?" She nodded, a tear slipping down her cheek, and he brushed it away, his thumb lingering, a touch that spoke of promises kept. They didn't kiss, not yet, but the dance was their vow, a commitment to face the world together, flaws and all. The weeks after the fight had been a crucible. Amara had stayed at Nia's, wrestling with her doubts. Nia, ever the protector, had pushed her to think. "He's got to meet you halfway, Mara," she'd said, her apartment warm with the scent of vanilla candles. "Loves work, especially when the world's watching." Evelyn, Amara's mother, had offered softer wisdom during a visit to New Horizons. "He's trying, baby," she'd said, stirring gumbo, her gray hair catching the light. "But you gotta decide what you can carry. Your heart's strong. Trust it." Darius, Amara's brother, had been less forgiving. He'd called, his voice sharp. "This guy's got you in the headlines, Mara. You sure he's worth it?" "I'm figuring it out," she'd said. But Darius's protectiveness lingered, a reminder of the family she'd always leaned on. At work, Sophie's rumors had escalated, her whispers painting Amara as a sellout. During a team meeting, Sophie had challenged Amara's latest campaign, her tone dripping with condescension. "Maybe you're distracted by your new life," she'd said, earning murmurs from colleagues. Amara had fought back, her pitch sharp and undeniable, but the sting of betrayal stayed. Liam, meanwhile, had been quietly rebuilding. He'd attended New Horizons events, not as a donor but as a volunteer, helping with setup, listening to the teens' stories. He'd met with Calvin, who'd pushed him to dig deeper. "You're not just her husband," Calvin had said, his tone blunt. "You're her partner. That means showing up in her world, not dragging her into yours." The Brooks Initiative was Liam's turning point, a program born from Amara's passion, designed with input from her community. He'd kept it quiet, not wanting credit, only her trust. When Amara saw the flyer, it wasn't just the program. It was the proof that he was trying to bridge their worlds. The jazz night marked their reconciliation. But it wasn't a fairy tale. Over the next month, Amara and Liam worked to rebuild, moving into a brownstone to create a shared space, a compromise between his penthouse and her roots. They faced new challenges. Darius's skeptical dinner, where Liam learned to cook gumbo from Evelyn's recipe, earning a grudging nod. Sophie's attempt to sabotage Amara's project, which Amara countered with a brilliant campaign that silenced her critics. and a second wave of press attention, which they navigated with a joint statement, Amara's voice leading. Their biggest test came during a community event at New Horizons, where Liam spoke, not as a CEO, but as Amara's husband, pledging to support the center's mission. The teens cheered, and Amara, watching from the sidelines, felt a shift. He wasn't perfect, but he was hers, and they were learning together. 6 months after their wedding, they returned to the cafe where it all began, its air thick with the scent of roasted coffee, the hum of morning chatter, a familiar comfort. They sat at their old table, Amara in a yellow dress, her grandma's favorite color, Liam in a simple shirt, his eyes as bright as that first day. "Would you do it again?" he asked, his hand over hers, the platinum band glinting. "Knowing the headlines, the fights, the work, would you still say yes?" She smiled, her heart full. "It wasn't one day," she said, her voice steady. "It was one extraordinary day that showed me who you are. The rest, the work, the growth, that's what makes us real." "Yes, Liam, I'd choose you again, every time." He leaned across the table, kissing her softly, a promise renewed. The cafe faded, leaving just them, their love a quiet strength. Their story didn't end there. Amara led her startup's biggest campaign, earning a promotion that silenced Sophie's whispers. Liam expanded the Brooks initiative, working with Amara to empower more communities, his privilege becoming a tool for change. They faced family dinners, where Darius softened, and Evelyn's health scares, where Liam proved his steadiness. The press moved on, but their love grew, rooted in the work of understanding. One night, at another New Horizons jazz event, they danced again, the saxophone weaving their story. Amara's head rested on Liam's chest, his heartbeat steady, and she knew they'd built something lasting, not a fairy tale, but a partnership, forged in fire and love. This is the end of Amara and Liam's journey, a story of love that dared to leap and learn to grow. They faced the world's judgment, their own flaws, and the gaps between their realities, finding strength in mutual effort. If their dance at New Horizons moved you, hit that subscribe button to catch more stories of love and courage. What did you learn from Amara and Liam? Would you take a leap like theirs, or play it safe? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and let's keep the conversation going.